What's up, everyone? Philly Insider. Got Drew with me here, Hunter here. And we got back-to-back series wins. And that's good after it felt like a long road trip, Drew, between the London series and coming back to Boston and then going to Baltimore. That was tough on them, I think. But they're back home. I think they're all glad to be back home. How you feeling after a couple series wins here back at Citizens Bank Park?
Yeah, I mean, like the thumbnail says, home sweet home. I mean, the Phils are they're so hard to beat at home, and the crowd gets into it, and it really affects the other team. I mean, there's really just no question about it at this point. Everybody comes in here, and they play much worse baseball than they do at home or at other road parks. I mean, it's so special to watch because they love playing in front of us, and we love being there.
Yeah, definitely. It's crazy to see 44,000 there consistently on a week like this where it was just blazing hot. I mean, I don't know how the players got through this, to be honest. Like, you get back from that road trip, all that traveling, and you get welcomed by 95 degrees in a couple day games too. I mean, today you had to play at 11:35, and Wednesday they played at 1 o'clock. Like, those were brutal days to play out there. So just for the fans to still be showing out in that, the fans not moving around, not having the shade of the dugout, some of them still being in the sun, and for it to still be as loud as it was, and for the players to still go out there and perform as well as they did. Very, very impressed by that. That Thursday off day was much needed, I'm sure, with the Heat too. So definitely good to see them kind of bounce back from what was a little bit of a rough stretch there. And also never hurts to beat the Diamondbacks either. After, I think it was the first time we had seen them back home since last year. I honestly don't know if I want any part of that in the playoffs again, just because Friday night was really, really infuriating. But we'll see. I mean, the Diamondbacks still got some work to do to climb back into the playoff picture, I believe. I haven't checked the standings as of late. But speaking of which, it was getting a little dicey. Like, we got down to 6 games in the NL East lead on Friday night. It's now back up to, I think, 7.5. I'm not sure what the Braves result is right now. So that's nice to know. You finally, you kind of settled that right there. Like that, I was getting a little nervous about that. So I'm feeling a lot better after the past couple of days.
Yeah, I think that division lead should be pretty safe for the rest of the year, just because the Braves' starting pitching is pretty bad at this point because they've had so many injuries and stuff. And if they get one more injury, like to Fried or Sale, like it could be really brutal for them because they just don't have the rotation depth to play a full 162.
Sure, I'm not super worried about it. Just getting down to that 6 games, I was like, shoot, the Flyers got to start. Or not the Flyers. I was reading the comment from Ted, but shout out Mishkov, he's coming over. But I was like, the Phillies got to start picking this up a little bit. Like, that was it's just always a little concerning when your lead dwindles from like 10 to 6 games. But I'm not super concerned either. The Phillies should have it on lock. At least that's the way it seems right now. But I do want to talk about a couple things non-game related today. Let's talk about the one game related thing because it's kind of outside of the game, but it's also related to the game. Christopher Sanchez getting a 4-year extension yesterday. Love to see that, man. I mean, and then have to follow it up with a start the next day. That's a lot of pressure too, to show you earned that 4-year extension. And he didn't waver today. I mean, he was incredible. Once again, he's been awesome this whole year, but today was really, really just special stuff from him. He didn't walk a single batter, only put 3 guys on with a couple base hits, I believe. And he didn't give up any runs. I mean, he had a shutout, 7 innings.
Only 80 pitches too.
Yeah, right. Like he'll probably, even though like obviously he's going to build up pitches as the year goes on, and he didn't pitch this much last year, he's probably going to be at a decent mark by the time we get to the playoffs where he's not burnt out too, which is nice. But well-deserved extension, 2 club options on it too. I mean, I don't know how you couldn't not like that deal. It just makes too much sense, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, he's been nothing short of phenomenal since they called him up last year about this time. I think it was like the 17th or something like that of June. So it's been pretty much 1 year to the day, and they rewarded him for his success and his leaps and bounds that he's made, and he's been incredible. So I think I was talking to you about it before the pod, but we have the top 3 leaders in the NL now in ERA, which is just insane. And he's better than Wheeler right now as far as ERA goes. I mean, obviously, I would still take Wheeler in like a big game, but I mean, Sanchez has just been insane.
Absolutely. Yeah, that rotation has been unbelievable outside of the 5th spot, which we will talk about. But the top 4 have been incredible. Turnbull was incredible when he was in the rotation too. And now you call up Michael Mercado, who I don't know if he's going to – I think Turnbull is probably going to start. Is that what the word is right now?
Yep.
So
yep.
Turnbull's going to start, and then Mercado's going to be in the bullpen. So we will see how Mercado does in that adjusted role. I'd imagine he's not really going to get any significant spots, to be honest, unless maybe they have plans to use him as a bullpen guy as the year moves forward, which I wouldn't be opposed to. I think he has value there for sure. But I would envision it being more of a temporary thing where he's just kind of there to eat innings for the most part, given the role that Turnbull was in when he was relegated to the bullpen too. So, yeah. But that also came with the news that Taijuan Walker is going on the 15-day IL. I think that we knew something was coming of that nature. Like, that's not a big surprise at this point. And it's just, I mean, it's been unacceptable. Like, yeah. I know he has the inflammation and everything, but, and I know he wants to tough it out, but the performances have been awful. And now we have the injury context. You know, I'm not sure how severe the injury is. He said nothing was wrong the other night, but I think Rob hinted at something being wrong, or maybe he flat out said it too with his finger. But yeah, it's just, it was about time. And it's so frustrating, like watching games where you just know it's kind of a scheduled loss before the game because of who's on the mound. And it was just like the game we were at a few weeks ago, Drew, the Sunday night game against the Cardinals, where I believe that game was also lost 5-4, if I'm not mistaken. And it's like, if Taijuan just hadn't given up one of those runs, like if you just got away with one of those mistakes, it's a completely different game. And I know the offense doesn't score a ton in both of those games, the Friday night and the Cardinals game. I get that. But it's frustrating when you feel like it's a guaranteed 5 runs every single outing. And you're just you're not even hoping for him to miss bats. You're hoping for the contact just to be hit right to our guys because it's hit so hard. So we've harped on that enough this year. I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. I'm really curious to see how long it is too, because I know I said Mercado is probably a temporary thing, but that ultimately depends on how long Taijuan's down for. And given how he's performed and how, you know, just how this year has gone for him, and also the injuries he's had in the past, I think the Phillies might have him take his time with it. Yeah.
And I think I saw a report from, I forget who it was, but they said they're not going to bring him back until he can effectively throw his splitter like he was last year. And I mean, I think that's definitely the right move, because that's kind of what made him what he was last year. And he was pretty good for us last year for the most part. I mean, he had the first inning blow-ups, but he ate 180 innings and he had like a 4 ERA, which was it's fine. I mean, it's not what he's doing this year, because he's been just terrible. So he's shown flashes this year. Like his start before his last start was actually fine, but he just has terrible starts more often than not. And like you said, it's kind of like a scheduled loss. It's not what the Phillies are looking for, because it feels like the only games they've lost like convincingly are games that he has started. Other than that, they've been in the games because the starting pitching has been so good. And even if the offense is down that night, like not hitting well, they stay in the game because the starting pitching and the bullpen has just been so good outside of Taijuan.
Right. And like you said, that splitter is really the big factor. I mean, it was probably his best pitch last year, and he used it the most too. The Phillies made it a point of emphasis for him to use that pitch more when he signed here. And this year, it has been probably one of the worst pitches in baseball as far as just the numbers against it. I believe at one point it had like a 700 slugging percentage against it. So guys have definitely been hunting it. It obviously has not been as effective this year. I haven't looked at the movement numbers or anything of that nature, so I can't say for sure if it's necessarily just been less effective, but by the results in the eye test, it's been less effective. So it's the right move, and Mercado will be interesting. I don't know if you had anything else to add on him. I mean, he's been awesome in AAA. I mean, awesome starter for them. They've stretched him out. That's been a really good project for them this season, and they picked him up in the offseason from the Rays as well. Like, that was a guy who I remember Gelb saying there was intrigue around him when they picked him up, and I didn't really see it. I hadn't seen him pitch at all, and again, his numbers weren't really the best, but obviously the Phillies have something in their front office where they can identify really, really good pitchers and develop them along the season. So it'll be interesting to see how he does in the big leagues.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely got a live arm, no doubt about it. So
yeah, 100%.
I mean, it's exactly what the Phillies like. Like they love guys that haven't had a ton of success, but they have a really live arm and good stuff to work with. And the Phillies seem to just turn them around when they come to organization at this point. It's kind of a like far cry.
I think I'm back now. Am I good?
Yeah. I don't think we lost you, but I don't know. Maybe you couldn't hear me.
But yeah, no, I lost you for a second. So
okay, maybe it was me then. I'm not sure. Anyway, but yeah, the organization's in such a better spot than it was just even a couple years ago. I mean, ever since Dombrowski's came and put all these guys in the minor leagues in charge of things and pitching coaches and hitting coaches, whatever it may be, our development's just been so much better.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just evidenced by the rotation this year alone. I mean, obviously a couple of those guys were already really, really good in Nola and Wheeler, but the steps they've taken over the past few years, and then you also see these guys like Suarez and Sanchez who were not really thought of as big prospects. And when they were on our top 30 list or whatever, it wasn't like those lists were very good back then. So they weren't supposed to be these electric arms who came into the big leagues and are doing what they're doing. And Sanchez, really the definition of a late bloomer, because he's now 27, and
yeah,
you just see the guy again. He's throwing 96, 97 late in the games on the sinker, and that's something I don't think any of us ever thought would happen with him. I think we just kind of thought he was just going to sit 92, 93, and that was fine, right? And
yep.
Obviously, with that elevation of velocity this year, it's been even better. So he's going to reach new heights, I think, through that contract extension. I'm really excited. I said last pod, give it like 2 years, he's going to have one of these types of Ranger Suarez years, and I'm really excited about that. But I do want to talk about the hitting a little bit too. We'll get back to the pitching and anything else we want to touch on from that this week. But definitely good to see the middle of the order doing what they're doing this past week, man. I mean, Bohm, Castellanos, Harper, those guys were just electric. I mean, those are really the three to me. Like, obviously, Schwarber was great too, but it's June, so we expect him to be great. Obviously, Trey comes back. He does his thing. And Stott looking a little bit better, like some signs of life from Stott too. But I think Bohm, Castellanos, and Harper are really like the three guys to highlight. And especially for Castellanos, like, it's good to be on here, not just trashing him the whole time as I have for most of the season. And I actually have like a lot of positive things to say on him. So I'm curious to hear your takes on those three guys and whoever else from the offense.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's just incredible to see, because they were struggling pretty bad there for a little bit in the middle of the order, with Castellanos and Bohm both being a little bit cold, especially Castellanos. Like, he was really bad for a while. But Bohm, I mean, he's been pretty consistent the whole year. Like, his contact has been pretty much the same since the beginning. Like, his expected stats and everything really haven't changed, even when he was not hitting what he was at the beginning of the season. But anyway, Harper, I mean, it's just, he's Bryce Harper. He's going to get going, and he's getting going right now. And it's so much fun, because like that first at bat today, you saw he just missed that home run. It was a fastball middle in, and he just right off the end of the bat a little bit, and it went almost to the wall. So yeah, he's locked in right now. And it's no coincidence though that when Trey Turner comes back, the middle of the order produces. It's like clockwork. He's so good in the 2 spot right behind Schwarber. Schwarber gets on base a ton, and Turner is just a run producer whenever he has guys on in front of him. And he's electric on the base paths, obviously. I mean, he hasn't been stealing since he came back. I don't know what's going on with that. Maybe something's going on with the hamstring a little bit still, but I would hope not. Anyway, yeah, the middle of the order, it's so critical that they do what they're doing right now. And obviously you're not going to do that every single night, but they can do it most nights because they're that good.
Right. Yeah, and like you said, I know people were pointing out the one with Trey. I think it was his first game back where he went from first to third, and I think some people probably thought he could have probably made it home. But it was also no outs, and we're up 2 runs, so there's really no reason to push it there. But I think you are going to see that a little bit, where he's going to take it a little bit easier and just kind of ease himself back in. That way he can be by his full form in August or September or October. Like, those are the 3 months you need him for. Not even the last 2. You just need him for October, honestly. Like, if he wants to conserve until October, that's fine by me. But yeah, like you said, it's a trickle down effect when you get that guy back in the 2-hole, because obviously there was no answer in the 2-hole when he was not here. I mean, it was pretty bad. They had to try Stott there, which is like, love Stott. I think he's the top of the order guy in the future, and I think he can do it now if he needs to. But having 3 lefties in a row, that can be a little bit tough. Obviously, that simplifies the game plan a little bit. And then you tried Castellanos there. We saw how that went. Nothing else needs to be said about that. But that was a failed experiment. But yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's a trickle down effect. It's good to see all those guys now hitting. And then you get Marsh coming back too, who he's been really good since he's been back. He gives a lot of depth to that lineup too. And just the threat of him being on base as well. And if he's healthy and he's a guy who's able to go first or third or take a bag here and there, that makes a big difference. And that stuff matters. So then you get guys, obviously these guys are getting on base for each other. Castellanos is now driving them in. I mean, that home run he had yesterday, took off all his equipment before it even landed. That was an epic pimp job, and you got to give him credit for that. And Bohm's just been, it feels like Bohm's gotten like 2 hits every single game this past week. So, and then like you said, Harper, we knew he was going to get hot at some point. The whole Phillies fan base knew it. And it feels like now, like this past week, he's starting to do it too. So, and it feels like it's kind of like it's contagious right now too when these guys are all hitting together. Obviously, Friday night was a little frustrating. Harper grounds out to the pitcher when we really had an opportunity there in the 8th to potentially take the lead in that game. But there's 162 games. You're not going to come through in every single clutch spot. And he was aggressive on the first pitch. It happens. It's part of the game.
Yeah, and like at the beginning of the season, before the season, I predicted Bohm to have 40 doubles. Well, he's going to have 40 doubles before the All-Star break at this point.
Seriously.
I mean, he's just on fire this year. And
what's he at right now?
I think 28. It's crazy.
Insane.
Not even halfway through the season. He's on pace to have like 60 doubles. It's insane. He's been a spark plug for this offense, and it's just been so much fun because everybody knew what he had in him, and he's doing it now, and everybody's loving it. So I'm just really happy for him.
Absolutely, man. It's good to see. And like you said, like I don't think any of us were too worried about him when he got cold. Obviously, when he's cold, it's probably going to be sustained for a little bit. Whereas I think with Stott, there's obviously less worry because of the type of hitter he is. And Stott, I still think he needs to break out of it a little bit. He's still getting in a lot of 0-2 counts right now, and I think it would benefit him to be a little more aggressive here and there. But that's also who he is too. Like he sees a lot of pitches. He's very patient too. And in the long run, I think he'll be fine. Like it's going to pan out for him. And I think Stott, like you saw it a couple years ago, like he didn't have a great first half of the year. Obviously, part of that was the whole Girardi conundrum, but second half of the year, he was a lot better. And then in the playoffs, he was a really productive hitter for us too. So, and timely hits as well. So I'm not worried about Stott. And I did want to mention too, the production from the catcher spot at the plate while JT has been out. I don't expect it to be anything that continues for the next couple of weeks, maybe not even this upcoming week. I'm not saying that. But what you've already gotten out of Marchand and even Stubbs had the RBI single today, right?
Yeah, I think it was no, it was just a single. I don't think there was an RBI with it. But anyway, like they've been good though. They've been definitely fine. And Marchand, I mean, he could play his way into being the backup catcher at some point. I mean, he's been really good so far, and he's every bit of an elite catcher behind the plate whenever he's out there, and that's a big part of being a backup catcher, being a really good fielder, I think, at this point for us, because it's just you can't be like you can't have brick hands back there whenever you're playing once every 5 days, and it's been really fun to watch Marchand back there though. He's really good. Yeah,
especially defensively. How about that throw he made last week? I think it was Monday or Tuesday night on an absolute rope. I mean, that was a dime piece. So credit to Marchand, man. I mean, he's definitely been impressive while he's been up here in this short time. And again, you're not going to get these guys hitting 300 the rest of the year, especially not Stubbs. But what they're doing right now, and with how the rest of the lineup is performing, that's the biggest thing. It's not going to matter how little or how much they produce if the rest of the lineup's doing what they're doing. And then anything they add, that's just a bonus. So it's been good to see what they're doing. And I did want to talk on David Dahl too, because he's been definitely cold as of late, but that home run against Tucker Barnhart yesterday, maybe that sparked him because today he was a lot better. So that being said, the platoon situation out in left field has not been good ever since Rojas went down. Rojas has had a really good first 2 games in AAA too. I imagine he will be back up here probably within a month or so. If things continue at this rate too, especially if the outfield platoon is going to be like this, because overall it's just been very unproductive. Unsurprisingly, Witt has not really done much. And honestly, like Witt, Pache, and I feel like there's another guy too. But also Marsh just doesn't hit lefties. That's part of it. But Witt and Pache really haven't done damage against lefties this year either. I know Witt's not really like a left, he's not really a platoon specialist, right? Like that's not been his role before, but you would still expect him in that role to have success based on the career he's had. But Pache, especially after last year, that's a little disappointing as well. And I think people are kind of expecting him to be the DFA guy at the deadline if they add someone.
Yeah. I mean, he's just been a shell of what he was last year, and maybe last year was just kind of like a Linsanity run for him. I don't know, but
could have been.
He was always a really good prospect, and he just never really figured out the hit tool, and everything else in his game is fine. He's a really good player out in the outfield, Gold Glove caliber center fielder, and it's kind of just a shame because he's obviously such a good clubhouse guy as well. All the guys kind of gravitate towards him as far as like vibes go. He's kind of like the Garrett Stubbs of the outfield, I guess you could say. But yeah, it's kind of just a shame because everybody loves Pache.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And like after last year when he had that walk off against the Marlins, I think he kind of won the city over a little bit too, because obviously the celebration, but also the post game interview, he was just like, I really love being here. This has been such a good, like, fresh start for me, essentially. Like, not saying verbatim, but like paraphrasing what he said in that interview. And then to see where he is now, like, it is disappointing because, like you said, he has all the other tools, and he can hit against lefties. He's done it a number of times this year, in some spots. Like, I know the Rangers series, he had, I think it was the Thursday game, he had a couple nice hits that day, and I think he got an RBI or two. It's just he doesn't have any options left. He's not making a lot of money, and he's not performing. So
yeah,
unless you really, really value a defensive replacement that much for October, I would anticipate them probably. I think whoever comes in at the deadline will probably be a Pache replacement. I think that's what they're looking for, is a fourth outfielder, a platoon type of guy who will probably replace him. Because I do think, like you said last pod, I do think they will probably call Rojas up at some point. And maybe that's me being overreactionary with how the past week is going. It could be. I'm not just saying that because Rojas has played well. It's just we knew the Dahl Witt platoon thing wasn't really going to work out in the long run. It was just, could it work out temporarily, and could someone earn a spot? It's only been a week. Time will tell. They're going to ride it out for a little bit more, obviously. But that's kind of my thoughts on the outfield. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that or anything else.
No, yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you on that. Like the fourth outfield spot right now is just kind of a disaster, and the platoon in left field is just, it's been bad, and I definitely think they're going to look to upgrade that spot for sure. And I don't know what it's going to be. It might be a superstar. It might be a guy that's like replacement level. I guess we'll see. But
right,
this kind of seems like the year the Phillies are going to kind of push some chips in a little bit. Not all of them, but
right,
unload a little bit.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. The only other thing I would have to say is, like, Hoffman today, good day to give up a run. Like, good day to have your one bump in the road. Not worried about that. I mean, the bullpen's had a couple shaky spots here and there this past week, but again, I think everyone's kind of getting back in a rhythm with being back home. And I'm not really ever worried about them. They've been mostly very, very good. So I don't know if you had any thoughts on the bullpen before we wrap this up.
No, yeah, I mean, still probably the best bullpen in baseball, and they're only going to be getting better as the season goes on here. I'm sure they're going to add some guys, bring up some guys, whatever it may be. But I have full trust in the bullpen, and I have no reason to be concerned unless they give me a reason, and they play bad for a couple weeks straight. But yeah, just no reason to be worried about them at all.
No, not at all. That's really all I got, Drew. I mean, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to talk about, but I think we covered a lot, even in a shorter pod here. But I don't think there was like too much to cover. I really think there was a couple key points from this past week, and most of it was just the guys in the middle of the order doing what they're doing and getting the guys back who weren't healthy, which is Marsh and Turner. So that's really all I got.
Yeah, I mean, just good fundamental baseball the last couple of days, and you lose one to the Diamondbacks. I mean, they're a good team, so it's not like super surprising. But yeah, I mean, just keep rolling and keep getting lead, keep extending your lead on the Braves. I mean, that's all you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like we talked about at the start of the pod, good to be 7.5 up now, and hopefully 8 by the end of the day. But I didn't check what the Braves score was. But regardless, 7, 8, plenty of cushion there, and plenty of time to build it. We go to Detroit this upcoming week. I think Marsh is on a plane headed out to see his sister in the Olympic trials, which that's crazy. I think that's in Oregon. And then he's going to have to get back to Detroit tomorrow. So safe travels to him, and hope everything goes well there. That is awesome that he's able to make that happen. But we go to Detroit tomorrow. We go to see our old buddy Matt Vierling, who's having a good year. And maybe we can leave Gregory Soto there with them too while we're at it. But
yeah, reverse that trade real quick. Get our fourth outfielder.
Yeah, exactly. Point being, though, should be a good series. The Tigers are not the worst of the worst, but they certainly aren't that great. That being said, I think it will be a very competitive series, and I think the Tigers will come ready to play, and they could certainly take 2 out of 3 against us. I wouldn't rule that out. So you got to come ready to play. But that's all I got, Drew. Anything you want to say before we sign off?
Nope. I mean, I'm excited to watch Spencer Turnbull pitch against his former team. That's all I can say. I expect big things out of him because he was phenomenal at the start of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be good to see him back on the mound, and hopefully the time off hasn't done him dirty or anything like that. Hopefully he just comes back ready to go. So I'm excited for Tuesday's matchup. I think it's Skubal versus Suarez. Man,
that's a good one.
That's a really good pitching matchup. And honestly, all the pitching matchups should be pretty solid. But we'll see. Anyway, we'll sign off. Thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate y'all. God bless. And go Phils. We'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.
Peace out.